Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book from the Legal Action Group. This is the Access to Justice charity. This is an important book. It's been around a while now. It's now in its third edition. It's called Gypsy and Traveller Law, been written by Marc, Queen's Counsel, and Chris Johnson. I think it's a very important book. It's available as a paperback and also as an ebook. And I've given it a title for our review, A Definitive and Succinct Statement on Gypsy and Traveller Law for the 2020s. And I'm going to say a few things because I've been involved in this area of law myself, not specifically as a barrister at law, but as an elected councillor with a local authority, where we've had in the past, in the local authority I've served on several, but on one of them, we had substantial problems because of the legislation which is still currently in place. Let's have a look at the book first of all. It's a very valuable book, I think. There's the front of it, and then there is the spine, the back, and then on the back you probably can't see very much. It basically gives you some idea of what's in the book. It's the third edition. The problem with it, of course, is you can't really read very much of that. And I have used a little bit of what's here just to give you an idea of what the book is about. Now you can see the shaded bit at the back is the appendices at the back. I'm going to work backwards. So what you've got in the back is the index, which is by paragraph numbering. Now the index, if I work back from that, it's quite a substantial index. You can see the index there. That's where the start of it is. Then you've got various other bits and pieces. You've effectively got a substantial bibliography again, because there's a lot of stuff in this area which is covered. This is various organisations, useful organisations for people associated in any way, shape or form with the community, and the difficulties that they encounter. Then Appendix E, which is the police processes. Then various other appendices running through, and then you've got after that you can see the shaded area itself. This is there are guidelines on managing unauthorised camping. There's enforcement, a lot of other information. Again, that's in that's the guidance in Appendix C. Then Appendix B again has a lot of information. There is government circulars. Then you've got Appendix A, which is legislation. Now, if we go to the front of the book, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the details because there has been quite a lot of useful legislation. There's the front page. There is a website. It's the LAG website, stroke bookshop, stroke ebooks, where you can get hold of information. And as I say, LAG is the Legal Action Group, is to promote equal access to justice for all members of society who are socially, economically or otherwise disadvantaged. To this end, it seeks to improve law and practice, the administration of justice and legal services. They do just that, and are a long-term supporter of their excellent books. You will find most of these books in court because they are so important. There's the blurb about the book there. Then you've got a foreword. You can see the foreword is written by Sean Spencer, MBE, Dr. Sean Spencer, MBE. A lot of detail there. It's worth reading just to get an idea of where we are at the moment. That actual foreword was written in December 2019. I'm recording this in early part of 2020. Then there's a preface, and after that you've got from the authors. Then you've got the contributors. You've got the main biography from the contributors, but there are other people. I can't mention all of them by name, but there are a lot of people involved in the production of this work. Then we get on to the contents section. You can see how the book is structured. You can see the detail. You should be able to find what you're looking for, and each chapter has the name of the person or people who have written it. So it gives you an idea of where we are. You see the detail. Both the index and the content should get you to what you're looking for very quickly. There are, in fact, 8 chapters in total, and then a series of appendices, in fact 5 in total, including the bibliography. Then you've got the table of cases, called a case law. Then after that you've got the table of statutes. And then after that you've got various other matters, table of statutory instruments. Then you've got the circulars and guidance. There's been a lot of that to assist in what is actually a problem. It is a problem which needs to be looked at carefully and handled carefully, because there are a lot of emotions that come into this. Then you've got the EU and international legislation, which is there. Then you've got a useful, well, I do this regularly and I'm glad, there's an abbreviation section, which is very helpful indeed. You can see, because there will be abbreviations you forget. Oh, I've forgotten what that means. And then this helps you. Then after that, you see the structure. At the beginning of each chapter, you have an index, which will tell you what you're looking for if you're looking for a specific thing. So first of all, it's an introduction, then who are gypsies and travellers, an overview, the history, Irish travellers, all of the problems, all of the issues, and then there's an outline of the book right at the end. And I just want to just go to that, because I think the outline of the book is very helpful. If you read that, you get an idea of what you might be looking for. Then after that, we then look at the various pieces of legislation, and it runs through that way. As I say, the book runs to 900 odd pages. It's under 1,000, but you can see the difficulties. Planning law, unauthorised camps, rented traveller sites, domestic law and so forth. Now, the reason I mention this is because unless you've been involved in this area, well, you probably don't know very much about how the law works, and you may have some preconceived notions based possibly one way or the other on what can be very emotive reporting in newspapers and elsewhere about what's going on. So let me explain where we are with this book, because I think it assists people to get a relatively balanced view of this particular minority who have got a bad reputation. And I'm not pulling any punches here. There are difficulties, but as with everybody else, this is a very valuable book for a lot of reasons, and I'll explain why. It's a first-class publication from the Legal Action Group, dealing with what for many is an uncomfortable area of law. And so Marc Williams and Chris Johnson have distilled those areas of law affecting the traveller community, which will be highly relevant reading to both lawyers, councillors and members of the public who are so affected. And of course it does come down in many cases to people making complaints both to the police and to the locally elected members about what is going on. And of course quite often it's the local councillors who will be some of the first people to know what is happening, because it is affecting other people's property. And of course there are both criminal and civil issues which can arise. And as far as we know, this book here is the only guide to cover the relevant areas of law, which include of course accommodation needs such as planning, site provision, very important of course, especially in the rural communities, homelessness and eviction, in addition to what are called here other issues impacting on the day-to-day lives of gypsies and travellers, such as education, healthcare and race discrimination, because they are a society within a society, and you've got to see it in that way and understand and have an empathy for it, all of which of course can be, because of what happens, substantial areas for conflict locally. And it doesn't have to be just in rural areas, it could be urban areas too. As the writers say, the gypsy and traveller communities in Britain experience widespread deprivation, social exclusion and discrimination. We can't get away from that, that's what happens. And as any councillor will tell you, me included, it is the lack of provision for suitable sites for gypsies and travellers which is the root cause of most, if not all, of the difficulties that they face living in the United Kingdom today. Now, I'm going back now as an elected person on and off for over 40 years, and I have to say to you that not a lot has changed. And in fact, there have been some attempts to try to sort things out. But this particular way of life is not going to go away. There will be changes, but you can see that there are cultural issues within the United Kingdom itself which need to be addressed, because at the end of the day there has to be a balance between what is the recognised society we have and the way that gypsies and travellers live. And in, of course, a free society, we have to maintain the rule of law, but that balance democratically as well. Now, what we have here is that Willers and Johnson have reviewed the new legal framework and the new policy designed to address the severe shortage of sites. And of course, local authorities have placed on them, that's the policy, a duty to assess the need for gypsy and traveller sites in their local council areas and to allocate land which will meet the needs so identified. And you don't necessarily need to think about it in terms of a one unitary authority or a borough, but think about it when you've got the district and the county councils outside the big urban conurbations, and you can then see why obviously the local authorities have placed on them this particular requirement, because again they have to work, if it's not a unitary authority, they have to work in tandem or together with a number of local authorities, because what happens is the gypsies and the travellers move from one area to another, and the same rules do not apply in one area as they apply in another, and that has been a problem, because that's what causes some of the difficulties. And of course the problem remains that it's almost certain to take a considerable length of time before that exercise, the current one, has been completed, because there have been so many other things, but we are now looking at perhaps a speeding up of where we are, because local authorities know that rented site provision remains in short supply whilst gypsies and travellers remain where they are, because they're going to be frustrated in their attempts to develop sites for themselves. And we found that the book successfully balances straightforward practical advice with comprehensive coverage of the statutes, the regulations, the guidance, the circulars, and what is a rapidly developing body of case law, because there have been quite a large number of actions in the courts. It's worth remembering that the work is one that we recommend for any locally elected person to read if they face the sort of problems that I certainly had in my own ward, and to both lawyers and lay people alike, because it is a matter both in I've served in both rural and city areas, and I can see the difficulties and the fact that there is a need for a bit of calm, because there's a lot of emotion very quickly, and there are a lot of reasons without going into it. The book is also popular because Wilde has made it the book of the month. A true accolade in my view, and I thought it was very good of Wilde to do that. It's rightly described as the key reference work for lawyers and advisors working with gypsies and travellers, and it's an essential guide for local authorities on their duties to the travelling community and the social and legal implications of failure to fulfil these obligations. And that, of course, goes down from the local authority to the elected members to the voter. And that means that the elected members will need to explain sometimes why the law operates in a particular way. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Let me conclude by saying this, that it succeeds in its aim to empower gypsies and travellers to secure their rights and to challenge injustice, which may not go down well, of course, with some local people, unfortunately. Whatever the controversies then, I think we're most fortunate to have this book and to rely on the Legal Action Group to produce work like this, which helps us, because they've come up trumps, providing as they do the best practical commentary on what is a difficult area of law. The publication of this book, I understand, is for the third edition, is cited at the 1st of January, New Year's Day 2020. It's an ebook as well, and I'm saying Happy New Year for 2020, and thank you LAG, because I'm very grateful to have this book. Let's have a quick look at it again. There's the caravan at the front, modern caravan too. Then you've got the spine, and then the back you can see again. I'm just opening it in the middle. We're looking here, homelessness as it relates to gypsies and travellers, because again, you've got specials. You can see the paragraph numbering at the sides there, and you can see the footnoting, mainly the statutes, but you can see homelessness is a big issue, because again, like many other things, the view that some people have is that gypsies, travellers are parasites, they're criminals, they're all sorts of people, criminals on the run. This is throughout history. There's been this issue, and there have been terrible sanctions by certain fascists and other organisations against them, and a lack of understanding of the nature of how they live. Now, in a modern society where there's a huge amount of regulation, you can see that there are going to be conflicts about the way of life of particular people. And in certainly the United Kingdom, we have a very free society, we have a democracy, and we also believe in, within reason, people being allowed to do what they want to do. Alas, there are some limits to that, and sometimes there are major problems which develop. So I hope this book, if it does anything else, will try and set the record straight for both the community themselves, the people within that community, and for everybody else who is not being threatened by them so much as being made more aware and given a more of an understanding about where we all fit in to the scope of things. Because at the end of the day, it would be Parliament that makes a decision about any future legislation. But in the meantime, we at least know where we are moving. But the problem will always remain, sad to say, and that is there aren't sufficient sites. With that, thank you again to everybody involved in this book. It is a very popular book, as many lag books are, but thank you to all. A very useful book in this area of law. Bye-bye.